Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we're tackling something that I think a lot of us struggle with, that feeling of being stuck in the paycheck to paycheck cycle. We're diving into a guide all about setting savings goals, even when money is tight, you know?
It's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah.
But there are proven strategies you can use.
Okay, so this guide jumps right into tracking spending. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm so guilty of just like shoving those bank statements to the side. Is it really that important? I mean, I kind of have a general idea of where my money's going.
Well, you might be surprised. It's kind of like, if you think you know a city really well, and then you actually look at a map
Mm.
and you realize, oh, there's all these areas I've never even been to. Same with our spending. When you actually track it, you see patterns that you wouldn't have noticed before.
Like what? Give me an example that'll make me run to check my bank statements right now.
Okay, let's say you grab takeout for lunch 3 times a week. Maybe it averages, like $15?
Mm.
Seems harmless, right? Yeah.
But that's $45 a week, almost $200 a month. That's almost $2,400 a year. That's a pretty big chunk of change that you could be saving instead.
Ouch. Okay. I am convinced I'm checking my accounts right after this. But once we've tracked everything, what's next?
Well, then you got to categorize it. And this is where you separate your needs from your wants.
Okay.
So you've got housing, utilities, groceries, those are your needs. But then you've got your daily latte or, those online impulse buys. That's where you can start to find some wiggle room.
So it's not just about cutting out all the fun stuff. It's more about being more intentional with our choices.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing something called opportunity cost, which basically means every time you spend money on something, you're choosing not to spend that money on something else.
Okay.
So that $5 latte could be $5 invested towards, a long-term goal.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. Suddenly that latte isn't looking quite as tempting. But how do we actually start saving when it feels like every dollar is already accounted for? Well, that's where setting achievable goals comes in. And I really want to emphasize that word achievable. Don't try to save like 50% of your income right away if that's just not realistic for you.
Yeah, totally been there. I set these massive goals and I just burn out after like a month.
Right.
What's a more realistic starting point?
This guide recommends starting with what they call a mini emergency fund. Even if it's just like $500, it's not your full emergency savings, but it's a buffer for those small, unexpected expenses, like a flat tire or, an unexpected medical bill.
Yeah, that would definitely relieve some stress, even if it's not a ton of money.
Exactly, and it gets you in the habit of saving.
Okay.
And once you've got that little mini fund, then you can start thinking about some longer-term goals.
Ooh, okay,
More.
so this is where things start to get fun.
Yeah.
Right? We can actually start setting goals for the things we want, not just the things we need.
Absolutely, but this is where being specific and measurable is key. Saying I want to save for a vacation is too vague, but I want to save $20 a week for a trip to Italy in 2 years. That's something you can actually track your progress on.
Okay, I love that. But I can already hear some listeners out there being like, easier said than done. Where am I supposed to find that extra $20?
That's a great point. That's where we get into some strategies, and the guide has some pretty clever ones, even for those on a tight budget.
All right, I'm on the edge of my seat. Hit me with the first tactic.
This is where paying yourself first comes in, which sounds more complicated than it actually is.
Okay, I love a good analogy. How would you explain it?
Okay, imagine you're at a buffet, but instead of just piling your plate up with everything at once, you start with your absolute favorite dishes. You make sure you get those, and then you fill in around them. So paying yourself first is like that. Before you pay your rent, before you pay your bills, before you buy groceries, you put a portion of your income directly into savings.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Like we're putting our future selves first. But what if there's like barely anything on the plate to begin with?
Well, that is where it gets a little bit tricky. But the guide doesn't shy away from those situations. And it talks about the classic 50-30-20 rule.
Okay, quick refresh.
Huh.
50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and debt repayment, right? But isn't that rule kind of idealistic? What if 20% just isn't doable right now?
Yeah, you're right. That's a common criticism. And this is where the guide gets really interesting. Because they talk about adapting that rule to fit your situation. Like, what if we flipped it?
Flipped it. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What do you
Right.
mean? Flip it. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What do you mean?
So instead of starting with the 50-30-20 split, they suggest starting with your savings goal and then working backward from there. So in our example, you want to save $20 a week for that Italy trip, right?
Uh-huh.
That becomes your non-negotiable.
Okay, so we lock in the $20 first,
Right.
then wait.
Then you look at your essential needs, housing, utilities, groceries, all that stuff, and you see what's left. And from there, you can allocate to your wants category. But with this new awareness, every time you're tempted to, make that impulse buy, you ask yourself, is this worth delaying my trip to Italy?
Whoa, okay. That puts things into perspective. Suddenly those like must-have items don't seem so necessary anymore.
Right. It's about aligning your spending with your values and priorities. But, the guide also acknowledges that. Sometimes, even with really clever budgeting, it's just not enough.
Yeah, I feel that sometimes the numbers just don't add up, no matter how much I try to cut back.
And that's where they introduce the idea of exploring additional income streams. I know side hustle has become a bit of a buzzword, but there really is power in diversifying your income.
Okay, spill the tea.
Okay.
What are some side hustles that are more unique than the typical ones we always hear about?
Well, the guide encourages you to think about your skills and passions, like, are you really organized? Maybe you could be a virtual assistant. Do you love to bake? You could sell your treats at a local farmer's market. Are you passionate about a specific topic? Maybe you could start a blog or a podcast.
Wait a minute, are you suggesting I start a podcast about saving money? That's so meta.
Haha,
Yeah.
see? You're already getting ideas. The key is to find something you enjoy, something that doesn't feel like work. And even a small side income can make a huge difference in your savings journey.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not just about restricting ourselves. It's also about creating new opportunities for ourselves. But let's be real, saving money can feel like a drag sometimes. How do we stay motivated over the long term?
That's where mindset comes in. And the guide has some cool psychological tricks. Remember we were talking about celebrating those small wins?
Yes. Tell me everything about how to like hack our brains for financial success.
So it's all about positive reinforcement. Our brains love rewards. So even if you're hitting those small milestones, celebrate it. Like, did you save your first $100? Treat yourself to a fancy coffee. Did you reach $500 in your emergency fund? Plan a fun weekend activity.
You know what? I did that. When I finally hit my emergency fund goal last month, I took myself on a little road trip to the coast. It was the perfect way to celebrate, and it reminded me of why I'm saving in the first place.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. Making saving enjoyable, not a punishment. The guide also highlights the importance of having an accountability partner.
Ooh, tell me more about that. Is this like a financial therapist, but more fun?
Haha. Think of it as your financial cheerleader. It could be a friend, a family member, or even just like an online community of people with similar goals. Sharing your progress, your struggles, your wins with someone, it can make a huge difference in staying motivated.
It's like having a workout buddy, but for your finances. I love it. But what about those times when we slip up? Like an unexpected expense wipes out our savings. How do we bounce back from those setbacks?
Well, first of all, know that setbacks are completely normal. Don't be too hard on yourself if you have to dip into your savings because of an emergency. I mean, that's what it's there for.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Sometimes it feels like I'm taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
That's okay. It's all part of the process. The guide really emphasizes self-compassion. And it reminds us that, financial stability is a journey, not a destination.
So how do we get back on track after we have one of those financial hiccups?
Well, they suggest taking a look at your goals and budget again. Maybe you need to adjust your savings target for a bit. Or find a way to boost your income to replenish that emergency fund quicker.
So it's like adjusting your sails when the wind changes direction.
Exactly. Flexibility is key. And this is another area where having an accountability partner can be so helpful. They can offer support, encouragement, and even help you brainstorm solutions.
This has been so insightful. It feels like we've uncovered a whole new way of thinking about saving.
I love that. That's what these deep dives are all about. We're not just skimming the surface. We're really going deep and exploring all the different angles.
Absolutely. We've talked about understanding our financial landscape, setting realistic goals, practical strategies, and even how to make saving a habit and bounce back from those setbacks. What stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
That's a good question. For me, it's the power of changing our mindset from scarcity to abundance. Instead of focusing on what we don't have, we can focus on the resources and opportunities we do have, and even small amounts of money, when managed well and invested consistently, can grow into something really significant over time.
That's such a great reminder. It's not about some overnight transformation. It's those small, consistent steps that really make a difference. And, we haven't even talked about the psychological benefits of saving yet.
Oh, that's true. Financial stability isn't just about numbers in a bank account. It's also about reducing stress, feeling more secure and in control, and ultimately giving ourselves the freedom to pursue things that truly matter to us.
Ugh, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders just thinking about it. But okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. We still have more to discuss.
Right, we do. The guide talks about some really interesting ideas about how to make saving not just a habit, but a genuinely rewarding part of our lives.
Okay, now I'm really hooked. Let's talk about how to make saving something we actually look forward to.
Hmm.
Okay, you mentioned the guide goes into like making saving something we actually enjoy. That sounds almost too good to be true. How do they do that?
Well, they use this really interesting concept, gamification. You know how there are all those apps that reward you for hitting your daily steps or like completing tasks? You can use that same idea for saving.
Wait, so like I can earn badges for putting money in my savings account? I'm so here for that.
Exactly. There are apps that are specifically designed for that. You set your goals, you track your progress, and you can even get like virtual rewards along the way. And it might seem kind of silly, but those little rewards can actually be really motivating.
I am all about finding those little hacks that make good habits more fun. But what if I'm like more of a visual person? Are there any other ways to make saving more well visible?
Yeah, definitely. The guide talks about creating a visual representation of your goals. Like, remember those thermometer charts they used to use for fundraisers?
Oh, yeah.
You can do that for your savings. So every time you make a deposit, you like color in a section of the thermometer, and it's like a really tangible way to see your progress, which can be super motivating.
Okay, I love that. It's like turning saving into a game. And who doesn't love a good game? But what about those bigger, more aspirational goals like buying a house or like early retirement? It feels like those are so far away that it's hard to stay motivated.
That's a good point. And that's where the guide suggests connecting your savings goals to your values. Like, why is saving for a house so important to you? What does early retirement represent for you? Is it freedom to travel, more time with family, maybe the ability to pursue your passions?
It's like connecting our financial goals with our life goals.
Right.
So it becomes less about the money itself and more about what that money will allow us to do, what we can experience, what we can become.
Exactly. And you know when you're having those moments, when you're really tempted to spend money on something that's not essential, you can ask yourself, is this more important than my dream of whatever your big goal is?
That is such a good question to ask ourselves
Yeah.
because it shifts our focus from deprivation to empowerment, right?
Yeah.
It's not about what we're giving up, it's about what we're choosing. This has been such a great conversation. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools now to like actually achieve my financial goals.
That's awesome. I'm so glad. You know, that's what we're going for with these deep dives, to give you not just information, but also like a new way of thinking about things.
Definitely. I think we've done that today. We went from feeling stuck in that paycheck to paycheck cycle to actually feeling like we can take control and create a better financial future.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a journey, not a race. There are going to be some bumps in the road, but with the right mindset and the right tools and a little bit of creativity, you can reach your goals and create a life of abundance.
That's a great way to put it. And, even those small steps,
Mhm.
when we take them consistently, can lead to big changes. So start small,
Mm-hmm.
celebrate those wins, and never underestimate what you can achieve.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.